Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive today into the world of Coyle glass. And if you've seen his work, you know it lives in this amazing, unexpected place.
It really got
It's
that.
where you have these playful, almost cartoonish characters, whimsical monkeys, colorful bears, and they just collide head on with this incredibly high precision scientific engineering.
And that tension, that exact duality, is why this is such a compelling topic. We've gone through the sources, and our mission today is to really trace that journey,
Okay.
to show you how he managed to transition a really rigorous, lab-based technical skill, the kind of skill you use to build scientific instruments,
Right.
and turn it into functional art.
It's such a wild contrast, isn't it? You look at one of the pieces and you just see this fun, freeform art, but the sources, they make it so clear that the foundation is all about absolute technical rigor.
Exactly. That's the core insight we pulled from all the documentation and interviews.
Yeah.
It's perfectly summed up in one note we found. Playful on the surface, scientific at the core.
I love.
And today, we're going to crack the code on how 5 years building specialized glassware for pharmaceutical chemistry translates into a whimsical collectible monkey pipe.
And to crack that code, we have to start at, the absolute least expected place you could imagine.
It's an origin story that feels so countercultural. It perfectly sets the stage for the dramatic pivot that comes later.
The whole journey kicks off in 2003. Not in a classroom, not in some high-end studio.
No,
It starts at Phish's festival.
that's the environment, the music, the energy, those communal craft tents. That was the catalyst.
Right.
The story goes, a forgotten guitar led him over to a glass tent.
Yeah.
And that first time seeing molten glass,
Yeah.
that was it. That was the spark.
Just pure experimentation, totally fueled by that festival atmosphere.
Yeah.
You really couldn't ask for a more free-spirited beginning. It's the total antithesis of a sterile lab environment.
But, and this is the key thing, the immediate next steps show this incredible, almost surprising commitment to seriousness.
Yes. That is the defining thread of his whole career, isn't it?
It is. He didn't just walk away with a fun new hobby.
Yeah.
He immediately sought out formal, rigorous training. He knew if he wanted to master the material, he needed that technical foundation.
So he goes from these sort of underground classes, training with people like Jason Kelly.
Right, the informal studio scene.
And then he jumps into a formal academic setting.
Precisely. The sources show that by 2006, so just 3 years after that first spark at the festival, Coyle earned an associate's degree in scientific glassblowing.
At Salem Community College.
Yeah, at Salem. And this wasn't an art degree. This was specialized training focused entirely on precision and utility.
Okay, I want to pause on that for a second. What's the real difference between scientific glass blowing and, standard artistic lamp working? Why is that degree so significant?
It's a total mindset shift. Artistic lamp working, it often focuses on the aesthetic. Does it look good? Is it generally stable? Scientific glass blowing demands dimensional accuracy, chemical resistance, and maybe most important, repeatability.
Yeah.
You're not just making a pretty shape. You're engineering a precise instrument.
Like a piece of lab equipment.
Exactly. If you're building a condenser, that inner coil has to be perfectly measured to regulate temperature. If a joint is off by 0.5 millimeter, the whole experiment fails.
So the question changes from, does this look good, to
does this function with zero error under, extreme conditions?
wow.
And to really drive that point home, he didn't go into an art studio after graduating. He went straight into laboratory work.
The sources say he spent 5 years at Sigma Aldrich.
5 formative years. This is a major chemical and life sciences company. He's building equipment that researchers rely on for critical, high-stakes work.
That kind of environment must build a discipline that very few artists ever get exposed to.
It absolutely does.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think in terms of tight tolerances, which means the allowed wiggle room from an exact measurement is minuscule. You need absolute repeatability. If a lab orders 10 of something, all 10 have to be identical. And crucially, everything has to be clean, structurally perfect. A tiny flaw could mean contamination or even a catastrophic failure.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, that foundation is what gives him the strict how-to. It's what makes his later art so different.
He didn't just learn how to shape hot glass. He learned how to engineer function under conditions that were, life science critical. It gives his work a kind of non-negotiable intentionality.
So even in the most elaborate, cartoonish piece, Every single connection, every joint, it serves a real engineered purpose.
He basically internalized the vocabulary of a scientist, even when he started speaking the language of an artist.
Which brings us right to that conscious shift. He moves from the lab bench to making art. But that discipline, it doesn't just go away.
Not at all. It becomes the engine for his creativity. The sources are very clear on this. When he shifted from lab glass to making pipes, that foundational discipline stayed completely intact. Tight tolerances, specific functional intent, that became the non-negotiable core of every single build.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because he's applying that lab-grade precision to objects that are, aesthetically just fun and irreverent.
It's a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have to analyze that. His style is defined by these iconic characters.
The monkey.
The monkey,
Yeah.
It became iconic because it connects to childhood, to nostalgia.
Yeah.
It was his favorite animal, and you often see it paired with these cartoonish bears.
They look like toys. They have this visual language that just screams fun. But
Yep.
is that scientific background really necessary for this kind of art? Is the precision part more about the story than the actual function?
That is the critical question, and the sources answer it with a loud yes. The rigor is absolutely essential to the function and, importantly, the longevity of the piece.
Okay.
So while they look like playful toys, they are engineered as real, functional objects. They're meant to be used, to be lived with, to be bonded to over a long time.
So we're not just talking about like a smooth draw or good airflow. It's more about the structural integrity, making sure the piece lasts.
Precisely. Think about functional glass.
Mm-hmm.
It often has these complex, multi-jointed shapes, right?
Uh-huh.
A standard glass blower might make a joint that looks fine,
Mm-hmm.
but if the wall thickness isn't consistent, or if the tolerance isn't exact, that joint becomes a weak point. It's prone to cracking.
From heat or just from cleaning it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Coyle's training means his joints aren't just clean, they're structurally perfect welds. They're designed to handle stress, temperature changes, and repeated use without failing.
It's the difference between a beautiful but fragile sculpture and a reliable, specialized machine part.
That's a perfect way to put it. The scientist in him guarantees the machine part, even if the form is a bear wearing a tiny hat.
And this really elevates these whimsical objects. They go from being fragile curiosities to durable, reliable possessions.
It's the engineering that guarantees performance and makes sure the art is not only beautiful, but truly functional, built to last for generations.
Now, he didn't get to this level in a vacuum. The sources really emphasize his role as a collaborator and an educator in the glass community.
That's a huge part of his legacy. He's quick to credit years of study and influence from others, and in turn, the big institutions recognize his contribution.
Like Corning.
Corning, specifically.
Yeah.
They highlight not just his technical skill, but his generosity, his willingness to share the hard-won technical knowledge that he got from the lab.
And that willingness to collaborate and teach, that's led to some major projects that show how his work has expanded.
Yes. A great example is the 2022 collaboration he led at the Corning Museum of Glass.
Right. The Flame Collab.
The Flame Collab.
Yeah.
He was there alongside other amazing artists like Hoobs Glass and Stephen Trino.
Mm.
And the product of that live collaboration was this piece, DXG 2052, a futuristic functional sculpture built right there in the amphitheater.
Building something that complex with multiple artists in front of a live audience, that says a lot about their confidence and their technical skill.
Oh, absolutely. It shows they can perform this incredibly complex, coordinated construction. Every artist involved has to stick to those same standards. Tight tolerance, precise execution. It's more like an engineering project than a jam session.
And he's still pushing, right? The sources show he's expanding beyond just pipes.
Absolutely. The 2025 residency at Corning pushed his practice into broader functional sculpture, things for the home.
Like lamps.
Exactly. Lamps and larger installations. And he did it by combining flameworking, which is precise and small scale, with furnace sculpting, which is large, fast, and often more freeform.
That integration seems like a huge technical leap, doesn't it? Combining this ancient furnace craft with the scientific method of flameworking, and then adding modern tech like LEDs.
What's fascinating here is that the scientific precision is what makes that leap possible. Furnace sculpting is really hard to control for fine detail, but by integrating his flameworking skills, he can make sure the joints, the internal connections, the points of the LED lighting, they're all perfectly measured and secured.
He's merging high-volume art with scientific accuracy.
He is. And that command over all these different techniques has led to Well, a major institutional acknowledgement.
The ultimate recognition, really, the archive.
Yes. The Corning Museum of Glass notes that Coyle Condenser is the first pipe-making artist to have an archive placed in the Racco Research Library.
For anyone who doesn't know, explain why the Racco Library is such a big deal. Why is this so monumental?
The Racco is one of the world's most important repositories for the history of glass. It holds the formal documentation, the research, the records of the most influential figures in glass history. We're talking from ancient Roman glass all the way to Tiffany.
So it's the ultimate academic validation.
It is. For years, functional glass art, because of its association with counterculture, it existed outside of that formal record. By accepting the Coyle Condenser archive, the library is making a definitive statement.
They're saying the technical rigor, the artistic output, the cultural impact of this work, it deserves the same preservation and study as any masterpiece.
Exactly. It's the final step in moving functional glass into the formal craft record. His teaching, his demos, and the act of documenting his process. It all ensures this scientifically grounded approach is preserved for the future. It validates the whole field.
So what does this all mean? I mean, the journey from a festival kid to a lab tech to a celebrated archived artist. It all hinges on applying the strict rules of science precision or repeatability to the free spirit of art. The discipline is the art. That's what gives these whimsical pieces their longevity and their integrity.
That's the definitive takeaway. And if we leave you with one final thought to chew on, think about the implication of that Racco Library archive.
Okay.
By preserving the history of Coyle Condenser, a creator of what are essentially precision playthings, the institution has fundamentally changed the conversation. It raises this fascinating question. Where do you draw the line between a consumer object, a highly engineered craft piece, and a historical artifact that needs formal scholarly documentation? It forces us all to recognize the profound scientific foundation that's needed to execute what looks like simple, joyful art.